A lot of times they'll say, well, Mom, remember you say such and such, such and such.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how we came up with the name,
Yeah, focus on what's working
because that's what I say to them all the
all the
time.
time.
Welcome to the very first episode of Focus on What's Working. And my daughter and I, Isis, thought the first thing we would do is kind of tell you a little bit about why we decided to do the podcast. Actually, it was actually my dad's idea, kind of, sort of. You want to talk about
Yeah.
that?
Hi, everyone. I'm Isis. If you don't know me, this podcast that we're doing has been honestly a years long journey to finally bring it to fruition. And it was the brainchild of my grandfather and I, and we just saw so much value in conversations across generations. And my mom and I and my sisters were always sitting down and talking about different things that are going on in the world and in our lives and lessons learned and encouraging and affirming each other. And so I wanted to continue the legacy of what we talked about doing with my grandfather, with my papa, with my mom. So that's what brought us here.
That's right. And I'm Lennis, and I'm obviously Isis's mom. My father, unfortunately, has passed on. He's been gone almost 5 or 6 years, but it still left in our minds the idea of being able to come together and talk about things that, are of interest to us, and we hope are of interest to you. And I think one of the first things I want to talk about is communication, because one of the things that my friends ask of me all the time is, how do I get my kids to talk to me? Now, I'm not saying that my kids tell me everything, because they don't. I know that. But I do get bits and pieces of information from everybody, and I add it all up and think, okay, that's what's going on, because
Yeah.
I have four of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned over the years that, as they grew, my relationship with them, of course, changed, but how I communicated with them changed too, because I'm no longer, you will do this, you will do that. It's more like just listening or asking questions. So you go kind of like more from a parent to like kind of a coach, I guess you could say.
I think that's a good
Is
description.
that is
Yeah,
that
I think
what?
that's a good description. Yeah.
Sometimes you're sitting on your hands and okay, that's wrong, but I'm not going to say that right now,
Mm-hmm.
because this is all part of their journey. I have my journey. The difference between their journey and my journey is that my mom died when I was 31. She was in a car accident. And so I didn't have that benefit of her wisdom as I was raising my children. I would, just try to think of what she would do in these circumstances. Now I have six grandchildren, and I'm lucky to say I've been involved in all of their lives,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different now because my children are adults, and it's just a different kind of communication.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's many lessons that we are learning along the way in our relationship, and we just kind of want to come and create a space and a platform for people to have conversations around, challenges in communication,
Mhm.
relationship and family, lifestyle, wellness, all of these amazing topics. But at the core and the foundation of all of it is in the way that we try to communicate, is we always try to focus on what's working. We always try to find the good, even in the challenging circumstances. And so we just want to share a bit of that journey with you all, and hopefully we can grow together in this way.
Yeah, and for the parents that happen to be watching this, I like to say when I'm doing my other podcast that it seems like between 20 and maybe about 45 or so in our development as women, we have what we call these hair on fire moments, like, oh my God,
Mhm.
because the experience we're going through is brand new, or we haven't gone through it that much. And it seems like, wow, some really tough things are happening. Whereas parents, we're a little older, so we know that this too shall pass.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting having four,
Mhm.
in a developmental stage of in their 30s, and one just turned 40, that sometimes have those hair on fire moments. But I just wanted to encourage you, to tell you, just remember that this too shall pass, that
Mhm.
whatever's happening. But you know what happens a lot of times, because of so many seeds over the years that have been planted to them by me and my sisters and my friends. A lot of times they'll say, well, Mom, remember you say such and such, such and such.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how we came up with the name,
Yeah, focus on what's working
because that's what I say to them all the
all the
time.
time. And we have a prayer line that we do with close friends and family. And one of the things that come up on some of those challenging days when my mom needs prayer or we're just in conversation is focus on what's working. And I think when you have that intention as a part of your mindset, it helps you to find the good in
Mm. Does
challenges.
that work for you, really?
It does work for me. What I found, so with me growing up, I'm the third of four, and I'm never the one. Actually, anyone who knows me thinks the idea of me doing a podcast is hilarious because I'm a very private person, and I don't really like to be the center of attention. But in this case, I was like, this is something great, Mom, you and I could do together,
Hmm.
where we could
Hmm.
just talk about things in a way that I think would be comfortable for me.
Hmm.
But what I learned when I was younger, because I was three of four and I was teeny tiny, I had a lot of, when I was younger, anxiety. And so, and a lot of just negative self-talk about, things that I was concerned about or not feeling enough or, just not being kind to myself in the way that I talk to myself about myself. And so a mindset, an intentional mindset around focusing on what's working, cultivating an intentional lifestyle of building yourself up versus tearing yourself down has been something that I've worked very, very hard on over the past, I'll say 10 years, but probably intentionally with a little bit more understanding over like the last 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I found that changing your mindset, changes the way that you walk through life, the way that you encode your spirit experiences, and then how you move through it in spite of what it is that you're going through. So it's been helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. When I hear her say that, she's dealing with anxiety when she was little,
Mhm,
that just stabs me in my heart because I
mhm,
didn't realize that at the time.
mhm,
I
mhm,
didn't realize that because I suffer from anxiety. That's how I ended up
mhm,
leaving corporate America and doing what I do now is because I had an anxiety disorder. Didn't really know I had it.
mhm,
Wasn't diagnosed to having it until years later. And there's all kinds of reasons for anxiety. Sometimes it can be hormonal, it can be chemical,
mhm,
or it could be anecdotal,
mhm,
some kind of trauma that's happened or whatever. But whatever the reason is, the first start of beginning to conquer it is identifying it and knowing that you have it.
mhm,
When I was your age, I didn't know that I had it.
mhm,
And I'm sure I was showing symptoms of it. But I got to a point when I was 51, I hit the wall
mhm,
and, had to figure out a way. And it's interesting because I think a couple of my daughters have it too. So sometimes, the behaviors you recognize in your children, a lot of times you recognize it because you had it.
mhm.
And so when I hear about the anxiety and a little girl having anxiety, it's like, wow, I hate to hear that. But I'm glad you're.
Yeah, and I think, I view it as something that I have dealt with. I don't It's not something that like I define myself by, I think that we all deal with challenges in life, especially when you're younger. You work a lot on I think of like high school and I think about junior high and it's like kids what kids go through, what adolescents go through in every generation. It's really, really challenging. And it's like I look
Mhm.
back on it like it was a jungle,
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
was a jungle and I was in a position that was better off than most. But even that, like you're trying to figure out who you are, where you're going, and what we all know is as we age is that you're constantly questioning and evolving and figuring out who you are. But when you're that age and you have the hormones and the doubt and the groups and the cliques and all these ideas of supposing to have it figured out, especially heading into college and starting
Mm-hmm.
career.
Mm-hmm.
I just came to realize that I just wasn't really kind to myself and I was very, very critical. And in that criticalness, it could be when I was younger debilitating, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm spending so much time focusing on what I feel like I'm not versus focusing on what it is that I have and my gifts, talents, abilities, and like pouring into that. And it was just like it was a lot of negative self-talk. And yeah, I've worked on it, but I think a lot of it, life experience
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
helped.
Yeah, well, the more
Yeah.
success you have, hopefully,
Yeah.
the more you feel better about yourself.
Hmm.
But these are the kinds of things that, from a parent, you don't necessarily know about
Hmm.
while they're going through it. I can remember many conversations that I've either overheard or that I've had with my kids
Hmm.
about different things, and they start talking about, back then what was going on. And I'm thinking, that was going on? I have no idea. What?
That was by design.
I know. And sometimes you guys tell it to me like I already knew.
Hmm.
And I didn't, but I
Hmm.
don't say anything.
Hmm.
But I'm like, well, I didn't
Yeah.
know that was going
We were in
on.
the car once recently, actually. I don't know if we were visiting Imani or what we were doing, but it was so funny because one of the girls brought up a story, and it's a story I know my mom has never heard, and I picked up on the fact that she didn't hear it, and she was in the front seat, and I had this feeling I haven't had since we were like kids, and I'm like, oh no, you can't tell this story, like you can't tell this story, but I look back and it's so funny, and it was this, that natural parental respect and fear of like, oh my gosh, she can't know about this, and it's like something that happened like 15 years ago. 15 years ago.
One of the stories I didn't know about was the multiple times one of your sisters who will go unnamed, so she's
Yeah,
not
because
here.
they will not like that.
She's not here to speak upon herself. Had taken the car and what they had done with the car and all that, and I'm like, oh, okay, because I was at work, I didn't
Hmm.
know. But these are the things that you get a chance to learn if you maintain positive communication with your children.
Hmm.
And one of my biggest challenges is not to beat up on myself about the things that I found out later that they were suffering through, or like now I'm in the back of my mind subconsciously like, anxiety when she's a little
Oh
kid.
my
Oh my
gosh, Mom,
God.
please don't make this a big thing. Please. I'm honestly, after I said, I was like, I don't even know why I said this because this is going to become a thing. And I promise you, it doesn't need to be one.
I would work on it.
Okay.
I knew that you had it, but just the idea, the idea of your little baby girl having any of that,
Mm.
and then you multiply it by four, because I think they all have at different times. They all have, but I've got to say that I feel like they are all functioning in the way they should be for the level of development that they are in. Because
Mhm.
I recognize, you guys are all different and you're all at different stages.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with level of development in terms of your age. It's
Mm-hmm.
level of development in terms of your personality type.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah,
that
that makes
is.
sense to me.
Because I think they all take turns for the most part, except for maybe the baby. But I don't know. I was gonna take turns being the big sister.
No, it's she has her moments where that
She's
where
sometimes.
that where just like that young quiet wisdom comes through and it's always just like,
Yeah, I see
wait
it.
a minute.
Yeah,
Like
I see. I see it because she gives me advice on things. So that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
They're at
she's a
the
deep one.
yeah, they're at a certain level of development for their personality type. And what I see happening is that it seems like to me the big sister role changes depending on what's going on and what
Hmm.
particular skill set or personality type is needed.
Yeah, and I think too, this is very common, I'm sure, for, others that would understand, like in your family and in your friend groups. It used to be when you were a certain age, someone that was 3 years older than you was like, oh my gosh, they're so old.
right,
And
right,
then
right.
and then you enter your 20s and your 30s and the gaps begin to close because the life phases become very similar and you're going through shared experiences and
Mhm.
you're just developing in a different way that's different than like adolescence and then young adulthood. So I think that's why a lot of the conversations change because we enter a very similar life phase.
Yeah, because they are pretty close together, just so you know the ages. And I won't say what age she is.
You don't have to do that.
She's sensitive about her
I
age.
no no
But
no.
I tell my
Mom,
age.
first of all, I'm not sensitive
Oh,
about my
okay. All
age.
right.
I'm just in my 30s. I'm not in denial about my age.
Okay,
I'm
we
just
won't
in my
put a number
30s.
on it. She's in
Yeah.
30 somewhere.
Yeah.
But the age ranges are
40 to
40 to 32 or
31.
31, soon to be 32, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
So it was pretty close together. So I like to say I was basically kind of like pregnant for 10 years. I mean, there were sometimes when I wasn't, but my chemicals were still there. I mean, parents who've had babies close together, you
Hmm.
never really recover, and then boom, it's time again for another one. But I'm so glad that I had them so close together,
Hmm.
because the blessing is that they are close.
Hmm.
They have their moments, I'm sure, some moments I don't know about. But one thing I know about my daughters
Hmm.
is that when somebody's messing with one of them, all of a sudden they're like that,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mm.
they're right there. And I'm glad for that. That gives me a sense of peace, that knowing that, when my time comes, they hate when I talk that way. But I'm just saying, parents, you understand what I'm saying, right?
I get it, but
There's,
you don't have to
there's,
tell us all the time. Well, not all the time. There's something that happened when my mom hit her 60s where we're just having all these mortality conversations. And I'm just like, noted, got it.
Mortality conversations. That's a good one. I hadn't heard that. You said another one yesterday too that was interesting. Mortality conversations.
Yeah,
Well, I guess it's because I didn't get a chance to have those conversations with my mom,
right.
because she left unexpectedly. I saw her that
Yeah.
morning, and then, within 2, 3 hours, she was gone.
Hmm.
I never had those conversations. With my dad, I had a lot of those conversations
Yeah,
on
thank God.
purpose
Hmm.
because of what had happened.
Yeah,
So I'm just,
your
planting
perspective.
those seeds. And I would say, even though your kids might give you a hard time about it, parents, still do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because after I leave, I've got like maybe about 40 journals or so by the time I leave, probably more. They're going to be like, I know what she felt that way. But I'm writing it all down. I'm writing it all down because I think that, not that I know it all, because I don't,
Mhm.
but maybe it will give them a frame of reference. Maybe there's something in there that will give them an aha moment that I didn't get a chance to impart,
Mhm.
to help them along their way. Because that's the one thing that I wish I had from my mom, is a journal or something. Even if she wrote on it once a year or whatever,
Mhm.
something.
Well, one thing I can say that you already do that we don't have to wait for those 40 journals for is that My mom, I'm so great. I am very, very grateful for our relationships, and we play around a lot, but she constantly is pouring into us and affirming us and giving us things along the way to like speak into our lives in untraditional ways. So even yesterday, she gave me a book.
Oh,
Uh,
did you read it?
I haven't started yet. I just got it
No,
yesterday.
no. Did you read the inside?
Yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
did.
Okay.
And she always, whenever she gives me a book, writes a nice little personal message in there. And whenever I reread the books or reopen them, it takes me back to where I was at that time, and I can see the way my mom sees me in my development and stage of life at that time, and it helps me to see how I'm growing too,
Okay.
and so because she always puts mommy, and then she puts the year that she wrote the message, and so we don't have to wait, thank the Lord, for the many, many years from now that day comes for the 40 journals. She's always giving us journals and books and keepsakes and sharing words of wisdoms, whether it's a voice note or a morning word or whatever it is. She's constantly speaking life into us and speaking into our lives. So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
grateful for that.
Now I'm thinking to myself, oh, is it too much?
No, mom. No, no, no. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like that. My thing
No, it's
is,
not. I'm just kidding.
I know that there will be things that you have more to say, but
Right.
I am grateful to say that we get that as a constant part of our life. It's been a part of our journey in our relationship.
Right. Right.
So like, and then even there was something you said, and I really latched onto it, and now I'm realizing I forgot it. You were talking about an aha moment. You were talking about your relationship with your mom. When we were kids growing up, I remember my mom saying maybe one time, or maybe it's something that I think I heard you say, but I don't know exactly that you said it.
Mhm.
So I got it from somewhere. But you said that you wanted for us not to be just to be siblings, but you wanted us to be friends. You wanted us to be
Yes.
sisters, but you
Yes.
wanted us to be friends. And I
Yes.
was really grateful for the way that my mom raised us to cultivate that bond, because
Yes.
like my sisters are my closest friends. I have great amazing friends that I've,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know,
For years, the
through
same
through
as
life
well.
and all of
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
But my sisters, they're my constants, they're my confidants, and we enjoy each other's company. We get together and we just have a good time, and then we get on each other's nerves too. But then we go to we reset, and then we come back together and have a good time. So,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that it's the ideology of, we're not just family. We enjoy each other, we love each other, we support each other, and I'm grateful that you had that intention in mind,
Yeah.
as you were raising
I think
us.
it's really important. Friends come and go.
Hmm.
As they say, boyfriends, men in your life, whatever, they can come and go. But your sisters are your sisters for
Yeah.
the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Whether you talk to them daily or talk to them once a year, whatever, that relationship never changes. And, we don't choose our sisters, God chooses the sisters.
Hmm.
So I always think that there's a reason why. A lot of times, people who knew me from college, especially, they still say, and it's been years now, about 40 years, they still say, I can't believe you have kids, but I definitely cannot believe you have four kids
Yeah.
because I was just not the parent type, I guess. I don't know. But I think it took that many children and those many different souls to seed into me, for me to
Hmm.
grow up,
Yeah.
because your children, whether you want to admit it or not, they groom you. I know they have groomed me, and I know that they're the best thing I've ever done, period. The things that I have learned about life, I would never have learned without my children.
Hmm.
So I feel very honored and blessed, and I'm glad God stopped at, number four. That was it, because oh my God.
Hmm.
But it didn't seem that much of a thing at the time.
Right.
As I like to say, and it's really true, it's kind of a blur. I mean, they remind me of things, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's how that happened.
Hmm.
But, you just do what you have to do, whether you have one child
Hmm.
or six children. You rise to the occasion and you do what you have to do. And what I want to ask everybody, and I want you to write it in the comments, please, this is really important. Let us know the kinds of things that you would like to talk about.
Hmm.
What are the kinds, not that we know it all, but
Oh no.
by any means, but what would you like to chat about? What kinds of things concern you? What kinds of
Yeah.
experiences have you had? And even if someone's watching this and you don't have any children, maybe you're thinking about having children.
Hmm.
I know that these days that decision is a different kind of decision
It
than it
is.
is, back when I had children.
Hmm.
Let's face it, the world is a little bit scarier, and people are concerned about, how expensive it is to have
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
and the school system and all those kinds of things. I
Mm.
don't know if I can speak into that or not, but I do know that one component that's going to get you through is to build that community, that support system of people who help you with the answers when you don't have it. And I didn't have my mom, but I did have a village of women who were really wonderful, who seeded into my children's life. And now they have their relationship with them. But if you don't have children, you're thinking about it, you think, well, I don't know if I could do it. You probably couldn't do it by yourself. I mean, I prefer that you don't do it by yourself because it takes all kinds of people to build a person. It's just not you. So I want to know, what would you like to hear about?
To talk about.
What would you
Whatever
like to talk about?
whatever you want, what would you guys like to hear us talk about? I know we have a lot of things in mind. Again, for me, the desire of my heart with this was just to do something special with my mom that we would have, and we have so many great conversations just on the fly all the time, and it's just about a number of
A lot of
topics,
things.
a lot of different topics. And, I've been so blessed to be able to see some of my friends have great relationships with their mommies, or, going on their journey and learning with theirs. And so we just wanted to, create a space for conversation for families and,
Hey,
for women.
maybe one day one of your friends and their mommies can come on too.
I have a pair in mind.
Yeah, I have
I will
you
see
do?
what she says
Okay,
about
I
it.
have a grandmother in mind that I would love to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have one friend. Her grandmother is so funny. She probably would take
She'll
over
know
the
who
whole.
we're talking
Yeah,
about.
take the whole broadcast over.
Mhm.
But
And we'll gladly give her the space
yeah,
because she is hilarious
she is funny.
and full of
And
wisdom.
here's a funny little caveat about that. You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yes, I know what you're
Yes,
saying.
okay. She used to take care of me when I was a little girl. She used to pick up me and my sister from school. My mom was a teacher, and she was at home mom, and she would do my mom the favor of picking us up after school. And but this is way before she, her son had her granddaughter and all that kind of stuff. But isn't that funny how God creates this, you know, not even 7 degrees of separation. It feels like 3 or 4 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
And now her granddaughter is my daughter's best friend. I mean, who knew? Those kinds of connections are just so valuable. And I don't believe in coincidence. I believe
No,
that
it
God
definitely
has a
felt like a divine connection.
yes.
Yeah.
It definitely
Yeah.
felt like a divine connection. So maybe she'll show up.
Yeah.
The one thing that I miss is that, Papa's not here, but maybe we can get a stand-in for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a few I have in mind that I think and I think he would just be, not to get emotional, he would be proud of us for doing this because it was really a desire of his heart and his legacy just to share. He had so much on his heart that he wanted to share in those final years.
I have a few videos of him, one in particular when you guys were all over at his house and he was talking. And my dad was a great orator. And so many great things. He was truly a Renaissance man, leader in his community. And he did have a lot of wisdom, a lot of wisdom. He went to school with Martin Luther King, and he came up at a time where the greats were your classmates, so many people he was exposed to. And he shared that knowledge and that way of being, not just with me and my sisters, but he lived long enough to share it with his granddaughters and his grandsons as they became adults.
And his great grandsons.
And his great grandsons too. That's right. They got a chance. And I believe that, even if you have just a modicum of connection with that, it makes a difference. That energy transfer or whatever. Because I look at my nephews and I see bits of my dad, just little things that they do. So, family is important, but sometimes in some situations, especially these days, it seems that, families aren't the way they used to be. Your family is who you choose to be your family. There's blended families. It seems to be a lot more matriarchal families. But whatever your family unit is, the idea of nurturing it and finding ways to keep it together and to keep it growing is really important.
Yeah, I think there's just the conversation around connection. Like it's so important that we stay connected, that we continue to support one another in the way that we can, speak life into each other, over each other. These times are different. The world is ever changing, but it's a blessing to have strong relationships, to have friends, to have family that you can call on. And we know family looks different for everyone, but whether the ones that are biologically yours or your chosen family, I think community changes things. And I think having people to speak to and work through things with really does make a difference.
It makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. And sometimes you're thinking that maybe it's not making a difference. And then you hear something that your children say, and you remember when you planted that seed or someone else did, and you're like, wow,
We talk about that all the time, and I say
wow.
to my mom, like when I, talk to my siblings or cousins, different family members, especially my friends and my siblings that now have young children, just we constantly talk about planting those seeds and that they'll bear fruit in due time in the due season. Sometimes I'm sure for parents it feels like, I don't know if they're hearing me or if they were hearing me. And then, like you're saying, somewhere down the line, those things,
Yeah,
they
I'm
come out of you.
yeah, I feel lucky enough to have lived to see a lot of those at least sprout up, or it's a little thing growing up through the. I see it. I know it's going to bloom and
Mm-hmm.
bear fruit. Sometimes, the development of your child gets waylaid because they just haven't arrived to that experience yet that's going to
Mm-hmm.
get them to that level. And when I say child, for those of you who have older children, like my grandmother used to say when my dad was in his 50s, that's still her baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's her child. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
especially adult children. I think adult children need to know, whether they admit it or not, that you're still there willing to be a parent,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
willing to. I was just saying the other day to one of my friends that no matter how old our children get, we're
Mm-hmm.
still modeling for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes modeling how to do it, sometimes modeling how not to do it, but we're still.
Look, I am a firm believer in the saying because we've, as we've grown and talked about certain conversations and things we've
Mhm.
been through as a family, and for situations where, it's a healthy relationship with your parent, I believe all parents are doing the best they can with the information that they have at the time. Like that's a conclusion I came to many moons ago
Yeah.
for, again, for situations that are healthy. And I for me to think that when my mom was 31, she already had 3 children. And for me at the age that I'm at and I don't have any, and I think, what life is like to manage for me at my age and stage without that whole added layer of, family, it's it's humbling.
Yeah,
It's
it's
humbling.
interesting. It's
And I
interesting.
I think when you can begin to see your parents not just as parents, but as people and understand that they were on a journey and that they were growing and that they were doing their best and they were using the resources that they had at the time. If we're a little bit more kind and gracious to each other, I think there's ways to find to work through some of those things that are
That's
challenges.
that's interesting because I don't know if we always think a lot in terms of family about the idea of grace,
Mm-hmm.
because that's your family, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
going to love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that they're not going to love you no matter what, but it may be your family, but they're also human beings.
Yeah.
And these days, especially, I think grace is called for, extending grace because of all the different moving parts and all the distractions and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
good to know that if, you make the mistake or you're going down the wrong path or whatever, that grace be extended without judgment. It's not like I gave you grace. No,
Yeah.
not. No, I'm talking about that. I just the grace is a lot of times the sitting on the hands. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna let that one go because that's not my place right now. Sometimes I think as parents, well, first of all, we don't know it all. But second of all, even if you feel you do know it, it may not be for you to share right now. It may
Mm-hmm.
be they just need to go through that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how many times have I thought, especially when you guys were younger growing up, I'm just going to do this for them
Mm-hmm.
because that way they won't suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And then almost always it blew up in my face, always. Because I just need to leave it alone and just let them go through it. But no, I'm gonna fix it and try to control the outcome, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that causes anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
When it's ridiculous to try to control the outcome of four souls. I mean, that's crazy. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I did, and it drove me crazy because it's impossible. Can't do it. So I finally learned, what, it's 60, whatever it was,
No, it didn't
63.
take that long.
And it took a long
Generally
time.
speaking.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah.
I think the biggest growth spurt for me is
Mm-hmm.
when my baby girl moved to Texas
Yeah.
in the middle of a pandemic and
Yeah.
she was expecting,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going nuts.
Yeah.
But
You got through it.
we got through it. But I think it was a
Mm-hmm.
really good experience for me,
Yeah.
and that's when I finally. I think that was a real apron string cut, but I still have this thing that's a little line to each one of them. But that really was when I realized, okay, she's an adult. They're all adults. I
Yeah.
can only do so much, and I can't be a helicopter parent
Hmm.
to children who are in three
Four,
states.
yeah, I'd say 4 different cities,
Right.
three, yeah, 3 states. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the
too much.
different lives and everything. I can't do it. I just can't. So
Mhm.
I've learned
Oh no,
to
we're actually in four
let it go.
different states now. Yeah,
Yeah,
4 different states. Yeah, it's
yeah.
too much.
It's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. So I think, you know, all of this has come together to teach me not just how to be a parent or how to be a better person, but how to model for them when their time comes, should
Mm.
it come, to
Hmm.
have, when your children go away to
Hmm.
multiple kids and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So it's a circle. And one thing I can say for sure, there's no such thing as coincidence.
No.
No,
No.
everything happens for a reason,
Yes.
even bad stuff.
Yeah.
And there was something that I said the other day that I thought, oh, wow, this is good. I'm going to send this in a text. I don't know if it was a text or it was a voicemail. And what is
Oh, it
it?
was a voice note. It was a
Yeah,
good voice. It was a
yeah.
good. It
It
was
was
a
about the
good voice
box, right?
note.
It was
Yeah.
about the box.
Yes. It was a good
Yes.
voice
I
note.
can't say it all. You won't hear all
Yeah.
of it. But
Yeah.
basically, the
It was
bottom
about
line
three
is
minutes.
that,
It was
yeah, it
good
was
though.
3 minutes. What can I say?
It was good though. It was really good.
It was good. It was an anointed moment. That
Uh-huh.
wasn't me. That was the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because we're all individually going through certain things that we're believing in God for in terms of
Hmm.
breaking through. And I
Hmm.
was just saying that sometimes the breakthrough looks different. If you're in a box, sometimes it's that little tiny fissure or that little hole that
Hmm.
you need to squeeze through, and
Hmm.
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the breakthrough is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the more uncomfortable it is, the better the breakthrough is on the other side.
Hmm.
That's what it was I called. And I don't know what it was that made me think that. But again, just trying to communicate those
Hmm.
little things. And this is what I would tell you, parents, when you have those little things in your head, and you probably already do this, but just in case. And you're thinking, oh, I'm going to pick up the phone and call them. So, oh, no, I don't want to bug. No, pick up the phone and call them.
Hmm.
Leave a message. Hopefully they'll hear it. Or shoot. What's wrong with, there's nothing wrong with sending letters. I've been thinking about that.
Mm.
I used to write
You
letters a
know,
lot as a little girl.
there's a couple of people I still get cards from, like around the holidays. And whenever I get it, it's such a nice touch.
Yeah,
I don't do it myself, but whenever I do it, I'm like, oh,
I know.
why
I
don't I send
I used to.
cards?
That's what we used to do because
Yeah.
if I were to pick up the phone and call my friends, like long distance, I would be in big trouble.
Mm-hmm. That's
My
before.
parents used to send me to the south for the summer,
Yeah.
and I would meet people. Then we would write letters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about that the other day. So every once in a while, me and my bestie Sherry will write, send a
Yeah.
card or whatever.
That's
It was
nice.
kind of still part of our generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that might be something you might want to consider doing, parents or children. Send your parents or your
Mm-hmm.
siblings or whoever your family unit is
Mm-hmm.
a card or a quick letter, because I know for me,
Mm-hmm.
as you know,
Mm-hmm.
I keep every single card I've ever
Yes.
gotten.
Yeah.
They're in baskets here, they're on the walls. And
Mm-hmm.
on Christmas
Mm-hmm.
time, this sounds a little obsessive, but I have
No, it's really
about
nice.
40 years worth of Christmas cards that I put up
Mm-hmm.
on the wall every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it really
And
is
it's looking
amazing.
really, really beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my mom's definitely not a hoarder of things.
No,
If she keeps something as a keepsake, it's like an intentional
yeah, it's an
mindset
intentional thing. Yeah.
behind
Although
it.
I did break my drawer the other day because there's just too much stuff in here.
Yeah. An opportunity for decluttering.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then I can't believe I did that. But yeah, if you could maybe, send a quick note to those that you love, things that you've been thinking about, just jotting it down. Sometimes it comes across even better. And guaranteed it's not going to get missed in a voicemail or a text. They'll get that card and
Yeah,
say,
it's there. Yeah. And I think too, for me, what I found to be helpful with me being effective, like in my relationships and friendships, is when I think of someone, I do it then. Meaning I place the call or I send the text, even if it's like in the middle of my workday or if it's at some random time, because I know me. And so I know the likelihood of me getting it back to it in a timely way. If I don't do it at that time, it was really unlikely. So I believe when people come into my mind, like, I feel like for me, that's like, God placing them there. And so there's a reason for me to reach out, even if it's just hey, just checking in on you or, following up on a conversation we started like 2 weeks ago. One of my group chats with my best friend, we're so bad. It's like we're either like right on and in sync or we're like we have these random stops and then someone picks it up like,
Right, no,
like
right.
like 4 or
That's
5 days later.
that's how
Yeah.
my friends are. I have a group of friends that we've known each other since we were about 5 or 6 years old, about 6 or 7 of us.
Hmm.
And we'll be texting for a week, and
Hmm.
then something drops off, and we don't text for like 2 or 3 weeks. Then somebody says something, and whoop, right back in
Yeah,
there again.
exactly. Yeah.
That's true.
But just when when you think of people, when you think of your loved ones and people you care about, just take the moment,
Hmm.
because oftentimes there is a real reason why they were placed on your mind, and those check-ins, you never know what checking in on someone else is
Oh
going to
my
do for
goodness.
them.
And
You might be the only call that they get, or
hmm
you might have some insight or just a listening ear to offer that wouldn't have been there otherwise. So it's not coincidence.
you're really right about that too. And I believe that obedience is everything.
Oh yeah.
I was
Oh
just
yeah.
telling your cousin today
Hmm.
what I'm so grateful for her obedience to go to your grandma's birthday.
Hmm.
And then we reconnected, and now she's on the prayer line, and we're
Hmm.
able to talk, and
Yeah.
and we hadn't seen her in years,
Years.
years and years.
Hmm.
But she said she was visiting in Southern California, and she was getting ready to go back to Texas, and then she
Hmm.
found out that her grandmother's 100th birthday was going to be that day,
Hmm.
and she just decided to stay a little longer. And it just so happens we were all there, and we hadn't seen her in a long time. And she just said she just had this feeling that she needed to go,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's turned out to be such a
Yeah,
blessing.
such a blessing to be
Yeah.
reconnected with her, and yeah, it's
Obedience
great.
is everything. As they say, obedience is better than
Then
sacrifice.
sacrifice. Yes.
Oh, jinx, as they say.
Hmm.
Well, anything else?
No, because if leave it to us, we're going to go off on tangents and talk about 15 different subjects. So I think this is a great place to put a button on it. We thank you all for tuning in and listening to us jump from topic to topic and
Yeah, it's
get
been
a
fun.
glimpse at our dynamic. But like
Yeah.
this is something that we're really excited about doing, and getting to share our thoughts, and then also hearing hopefully from you as well, and
Mhm.
find a way to continue to focus on what's working.
Absolutely. And please let us hear from you. We're not on well, we will be on media eventually. Hashtag,
Instagram,
yeah, hashtag
Facebook, YouTube,
focus on what's working, or focus.
hashtag focus on what's
Okay,
working.
hashtag focus on what's working. We'll probably go on live on Instagram and TikTok. For those of you who don't know me, I happen to be a midlife influencer, so I'm on social media a lot anyway. So I'm going to make sure that we get on there so that we can
Hmm.
get to know you better, you can get to know us better. But thanks so much for listening and tuning in. We'll see you again next time. Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.